was
Yo.
I felt like that intro was fitting given the name of the stream here.
What was it? I wasn't even paying attention. I was trying to find.
It was Biden crashing on the bicycle.
Oh.
What's the name of the show?
Because we're talking about the collapse of an empire.
Yeah. The collapse of the Roman Empire. Zach, how often do you think of the Roman Empire?
How often do I think about the Roman Empire? Not very often. To be honest, I don't know a lot about it. You know, it was a thing. Italians and such took over a lot of land. I think it's 100 years to really happen. I don't know. How's that sound?
Oh, that's better. Yeah. Well, apparently it's a trend that the women would ask their husbands about if they think about the Roman Empire, and there was like this.
Is this like the how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast thing, or?
Yeah, but I guess the opposite kind of thing. It's like if you can't answer it, like I don't know.
Think about the Roman Empire.
More often lately than I would say ever before. That's a weird question. Wasn't expecting that one, but oddly enough, I was actually doing some research on the Roman Empire a few months ago. Just making sure that we weren't. I was just making sure there's a lot of things going on here and around the world. Empires only have a certain amount of time that they can stay on top. So, I'm a historian over here, so just doing some research. That's all, okay. That's all. But where the hell did that question come from?
Because there's this TikTok where women are realizing that every man in their life spends time at least once a week thinking about the Roman Empire. And as a woman, it's just like, why, when, what? And so every man's like, yeah, I thought about it today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. It's like all these dudes are just saying like, yep, I thought about the Roman Empire today.
I would like to say to all these dudes who are finally thinking about the Roman Empire today, where you motherfuckers been for the past 20 years? when I was in high school, I was saying we are living through the fall of the Roman Empire. We were watching it happen in real time, and I projected that we had about 70 years before we would be at the precipice that we have reached now. I think technology speeds up the timeline.
Or slows it down, depending. Because I don't think that we're necessarily just going to like. It's
see,
not just going to be.
See, I think part of what allowed the Roman Empire to sustain as long as it did was the fact that they didn't have the technology, and so news took so long to travel. Like, you know, they didn't know it had collapsed for about 50 years before, or until it had already collapsed. You know, it had to spread. It had to spread. Now we get it all immediately. Like, as soon as this motherfucker is gone, there's going to be 7 TikTokers that have already covered it and moved on to the next thing. Like, that'll be old news.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean everything.
Sorry, now you're going to open up a can of worms, and I'll start going into all of the parallels between modern society and what's been happening over the last 50 to 70 years, and how it coincides with things that were happening over the last 100 to 200 years of the Roman Empire. And yeah,
See, I felt like this was a fitting topic, you know, for you. Yeah, since you had a rough night, you said so. Like this would be a good thing to kind of energize you, and you know, and you'd probably be like, yeah, like all these idiots that I'm having. That I have to
I can just drop both of y'all out and do this whole thing myself. Never mind, Dad, go to work. I don't even need y'all. I got this.
So let me interject something then from you know, my more thought department. So like when there's something, let's say like the Roman Empire or whatever, and I would say, let's say especially in olden times, nowadays because of news and you know the technology and stuff like you know, like Justin pointed out, it does kind of shake things up. But let's say like, you know, whatever, it's 1,000 years ago or 2,000, whatever the fuck this shit's happening, and like, okay, like when like there's great like governmental change or empires collapse and fall, it's like for some people it really matters or they really feel it. But I feel like especially back then when everybody was like subsistence farmers and shit, it's like, oh, somebody else is in charge, okay, whatever. Like my life doesn't like change much, you know. But there are, and it's the same thing like when like the like, you know, king, you know, you know, the people are very like pro king or monarch, whatever, and they're like, oh,
and this and that, and it's like
there's definitely
like situation.
You can have like a king and it be like great, or you can have a king and it be really fucking shitty. So it's very like situational. But I wonder how often, like for the majority of people, if they even know or care or how much that shit mattered to them, you know, back then. Nowadays, when the government can change monetary policy in like the blink of an eye, and suddenly your money's worth nothing, like that's huge. But that kind of stuff happened back then too. Like even like the Roman Empire, they started cutting in other metals into the coins, right? So like they, you know, like introduce their own form of inflation. So,
well, like
you know, the thing,
all, you know, parts of the coins, making them,
right? Yeah, you cut in tin or some shit, you know. So like there was always chicanery, but it's, you know, there's some people it really matters for, and some people are just like, well, whatever. Like I'm reading about like the Acadians, and it was like, you know, they just, you know, they lived in like Canada or like on this island or whatever, and it's like one year the British would show up and be like, you have to support us or we're gonna kill you all, and they're like, okay, whatever. And then it's like 2 years later, the French show up and they're like, what are you doing supporting them? You have to support us. We're going to kill you all. And they're like, okay, whatever. And then it's like 2 years later, it just keeps going on for like ever like that, you know? And they're just like, we don't give a fuck. Like, we just want to grow our food and live. And for the most part, even with all that going on, they got left alone. But, you know.
Well, see, like back then, because the territories weren't so like refined, like now every area is like a country. It has to be some sort of there's the nation state as it is modern, like in modern day, the concept of the nation state, and every single area of land basically has to be governed by a nation state, or that's a territorial dispute, you know, at some point, like, oh, if is this not claimed? Well, we need to, like, this country needs to claim it, or that country lays claim to it. So yeah, it's something where everyone has to live under the purview of a nation state. So I mean that's why now it does matter where you are, because as much as we joke about like how horrible America is, just imagine if we were a few hundred miles north, like in Canada, under.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to
admin
leave the U.S. like for,
Yeah.
for any reason. You know?
Yeah, well, I mean, like a lot of these people though are saying like, oh, it doesn't really matter what country you're at. You could be in the UK or whatever, and it's like, no, it really does matter. You guys,
It does matter, yeah.
Like that, the king, or the government, it does matter a little bit, as far as they have a lot of say over what you do, or less say depending on where you're at. And at least here, there's a little bit less say in what you do for some things, at least.
Yeah, or it's in different ways, and like
Yeah.
I have friends who moved to Mexico, and I think they had good reasons, and it works for their life, and that's that's ideal for them. So it's just it depends on what your priorities are too. You know what I mean?
I like Layton's idea: take the land back from the feds and give it to the people through the market, which is ultimately what is going to end up happening. Because if we learned anything from the fall of the Roman Empire, the only part that really stayed somewhat succinct was Rome itself and what became Italy, and that was kind of through the guidance of the Roman Catholic Church. And then the rest of it all just kind of fell off into everybody started divvying shit up, and that's when you ended up with kings, and then like other nations were formed out of that dissolving. That's what I've been talking about this for a few years as well. That's what I think is going to come out of the eventual collapse of the United States empire. Is it's going to break down into 7 or 8 smaller territories that it's probably going to be, I would hope, a little more civil in the way that it ultimately gets divvied up, and the regions separate themselves out. A little less warlordy than what would have gone on back in the in the hundreds when the Roman Empire collapsed, or early thousands, whatever it was. Hopefully it's a little less warlordy than that. But I mean, if it's not, that closet is like overflowing with ammo. I'm ready for the warlordy part of this. Like, let's do this.
Here we go. I'll lay claim to my territory. This is my territory, and you just like scope it out, like.
Right, I vow to no king.
You get your son out there. You're like, you get over there, boy. You watch that sight line. I'll watch this sight line.
He's a good shot, but he doesn't have that in him. If I'm putting somebody out to defend the property, it's going to be the girls. They are.
They got the bloodlust. They got that.
They're a little bit on the
bloodlust.
crazy side, as all females are, to some degree or another.
Speaking of crazy females,
we talking about Lauren Boebert or what did she even do? Nobody has been able to answer me the question. What did Boebert do that was a disturbance that got her and her new boy toy kicked out of Beetlejuice?
I'm pretty sure it was just her being like
just flashing boobs.
Yeah. Look at me,
He's packing, man.
Enhanced.
Have you seen that AI? The AI that's down there in the corner.
She's given she's given Nancy Pelosi a run for her money. Oh my god.
Motorboat? You play the motorboat? You motorboat.
Oh, dude.
So was that a play? Was it a play?
Yeah, she went to see some play, and then from what I gather, there were, I guess, like some of the liberals in the audience that just like kind of like didn't like her being there, and so her being there caused the disturbance, and so they kicked her out because they thought that she was like the problem. I guess is what it boiled down to. Is like her being there was upsetting these people and causing them to spurg out. So
Like
therefore,
if she actually did something to deserve
they
to
would
get
have
kicked
it on
out,
video.
then number one, it would be on video, and number two, like I would get it. But do they not understand that by doing this insane bullshit of just like running people out because they exist, like for no more reason than because they're there, that it's just enhancing her image. Like it's just making her more likable over them. Like, and of course, then you get the perp walk with the tits jiggling and everything. I mean, that's like you just built her brand.
Yeah. Like you're raising her profile when you could have just ignored her. Like that's the funniest thing is like you just ignore her, that's fine. Like, you know, nobody sees these pictures and they don't it makes her likability go up. I mean, honestly. Like, okay. Like
I hope she was in there yelling about that she got $10,000 titties.
Oh my god, dude, that'd be great.
I think those are all natural.
Considering she
for her.
divorced her husband.
Yeah,
I really wonder what happened with that, because like I mean, I can assume probably her being in that position probably led to some of that, but like
I say it was probably something similar to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like I know there was speculation that he and she were both banging around on the side, and that's entirely possible and probably probable, highly likely, I would say. But like when they announced
like a staffer, like a staffer, she bangs a staffer. One of her staffers bangs the husband or something like that.
Who knows? But like when they announced the whole divorce and everything, it was very amicable, and like they stood there together, and it's like more or less, she said, like, my position and the notoriety that has come with it and the attention that being me has generated has been difficult on our family and straining on our marriage, and this isn't what he signed up for, and like it was like we've decided to part ways just because it's unfair to him and putting him and his life in like constant turmoil just because she is such a controversial figure and an incredibly public one. And I think the Boebert situation was something, at least a little bit on the. She definitely has a little more of the white trash vibe with the with having a kid at 16. Now her 16-year-old kid is having a kid, and like all the craziness around her whole everything. I didn't know they had that kind of white, like that's like rural Indiana style white trash. I didn't know they had that in Colorado. That's a little bit refreshing, honestly.
I mean, outside of Denver, I mean, basically most of it is kind of rural, right? I mean, from what I understood. So,
I guess it makes sense.
Like
something else they've got.
Yeah.
Something else they've got plentifully in Colorado. Homeless camp with pop-up bar and rentable prostitution tents. They are really incentivizing this whole like being homeless thing. You will own nothing and be happy about it, and we're going to make sure you've got a bar and prostitutes to ensure that you're happy about it. In fact, if you go to the right part of the country, California, we'll pay you to be homeless. Just don't use that money to pay rent or anything. Stay on the streets, live in a tent. You see that? There's like a video of this dude that's talking about like he gets paid like $600 a month to be homeless in San Francisco. It's like it's a pretty sweet gig.
I think Wayne's gonna take up this offer.
Wayne's like, wait, $600 a month, a pop-up bar and a prostitute tent? Shit, sign me up.
I guess out in California, like in LA, there people are just parking like RVs on the side of the road and then renting them out by the week, like the homeless and shit. So you just have, the homeless are upgrading to RVs now too, man.
You don't
There's
even
a
have to live in a tent anymore.
yeah, man. You can still be homeless, to live on the street. You know, I mean, you think they're driving somewhere to dump that black water? Hell no, you just dump it right down the storm drain. Ooh, great. Yeah. What a fucking hellhole, man. Jesus. Crazy.
I mean, it is impressive the lengths to which these liberal cities are going to almost make it preferable to be homeless. Like, because you got people that a house like this, just, I mean, this is a small house. There's nothing crazy about this. A house like this around here, I could rent it out for $800 to $1,000 a month. If somebody wanted to rent a place like this in California, you're probably looking at like $3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you
Well,
live?
well, I mean, they have to have a higher income. That's the problem. Is like you have to have a high income job to sustain that. So that's why the only people who can really make it are the tech bros, as long as those jobs are actually still there, because a lot of those jobs are getting cut, every other year. So that's a huge problem for them, and that's why a lot of them do end up having troubles, is because, well, I got a job here, and then 2 years later, so a lot of them can find other work, like they can move to somewhere else, like find another job that's in the area, and that's the only way that they sustain, is like, hey, I got laid off from my tech job, so I go to another tech company that's like down the road, and that the only reason that I can have access to that is because I live here. If I didn't, and that's the whole thing with the New York and like San Francisco specifically, or just like California in general, that economy is like they have to, because of all the different types of jobs that a big city does have. That's the only way you're able to sustain the being in such a high cost of living area, and even then they still struggle.
Well, it is. It's like, so, like, I like to make fun of like the other 98% and Occupy Democrats a lot, but it's like if the shit they say a lot of times is like true if you think that the only place you can live is like some city, like we've all seen like the figure where it's like there's no state in the country that you can afford a 1-bedroom apartment on a minimum wage job, and it's like, you're right, there's no state, but there's plenty of cities, because when you average together the city, like, yeah, it's expensive, but like Justin said, I mean, that's a very reasonable price to rent a house, but you can't do that in the city. If you work at fucking Wendy's, brought to you by Wendy's, they support the show, by the way. If you work at Wendy's in downtown St. Pete, it's like, yeah, dude, like they got to pay you $18 a fucking hour, but that's just the way it is. If you have to live in some forward-thinking progressive city where you can go do goat yoga in the park and go to your gay bar on the weekends or what the fuck ever, it costs fucking money. It's expensive, so it's like, but that's the lifestyle you've chosen at that point. Like you can move to a place that isn't quite so fancy and pay a lot less. And I do want to go on the record as saying I'm not opposed to people living in RVs or tents or whatever. Like, that's fine. You just do it in a proper, respectable manner, right? You don't do it on the sidewalk out in front of some electronics store. That's fucking insane. You don't dump your black water down the storm drain. You know what I mean? That's awful, right? You find private land where you can camp or rent a campsite or what the fuck ever. But, I'm all for people reducing their overall cost of living by scaling down. Like, by all means, man, do it. Don't work so much. Spend more time with your family. You know what I mean? But, some people want the big house, and that's fine too. You got to work for it.
There are like permanent RV parks around here where it's like it's a campsite, but none of the
way they make money.
Yeah, none of the campers or RVs leave. Like they live there year round. They're not, nobody's actually camping there. Like these are permanent residents.
Yeah, but like
when you rent your spot for the month instead of the weekend, like you.
Yeah, well, we've got tons of like RV parks, and there's some people they just rent a spot and put up a tent, and there's people who go back up north and they rent the spot all summer even though nobody, so when they come back, they can get their same spot that winter. Like it is a big, we get the snowbirds here, so it's a big thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it exists. And then they have showers, they have fucking actual places to put their shit, you know, like you're actually living in a responsible manner and ideally at a less, you know, lower cost.
Not just like taking a dump down the storm drain in the middle of the city. Like that.
Hey, we've all done some crazy things when we're drunk, but you shouldn't make a habit of it, you know?
Oh, we've talked about, you know, whenever we get rid of the kids, we've talked about a lot of things, and we're probably going to end up combining like all of them and doing it all at once.
Every work, guys. Peace.
See you, man.
Yeah.
But, like we've talked about whenever the kids move out and they're gone and everything, like liquidating all of our stuff. Basically, at this point, we're working towards just sell it all to the kids and let them fucking deal with it. But like liquidate everything and buy a spot out in the middle of the woods somewhere and just build a little tiny house and get the fuck off the grid entirely. And like, I mean, that's, you know, that would be reducing all of our overhead. I don't even know if I need running water. I just throw up a fucking dig a well and throw up an outhouse, you know, fill in the hole and dig a new one every once in a while.
Oh my god.
And then we could do that in Montana or Wyoming. Really, really get out in the middle of, man. The kids, when we showed the kids, like we found like a little barn type thing, and I was like, see, I'm going to buy this and then I'm going to convert it into like a tiny home and stick it out in the middle of the woods somewhere. And the kids go, well, where are we going to stay when we come visit? I say, y'all think we're telling you where we're going? Like, if you want to see us, you tell us and we'll come to you. You're not coming to us. Like, once you're gone, you're gone. You don't come back. We are leaving you. They didn't take that very well. I don't understand. You know, as much time as our kids spend trying to avoid us, whenever we say that we're gonna bail on them once they're grown, whenever we say we're gonna bail on them once they're grown, they're like, "What? What? No, you're gonna come see us. We got to be able to come see you whenever we want." Fuck that. I don't even want to see you half the time now. Needy little brats.
Oh man. You gotta have the escape plan, I guess.
I got so many escape plans, and they're all ever changing. Taking three different plans.
You got the whole whiteboard, don't you? Like the.
It's in the other room over there. It's plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D on the back side.
And then, you've got the drawer underneath that has like Plan D through F, and then then all the way to Z.
Got all the blueprints drawn out for the different tiny homes I may or may not build. Like, it just depends on how I feel that day. Yeah, like all kinds of plans. Just got to figure out how I'm gonna like hodgepodge all of them together and drop off the grid entirely. Like, one day I'm gonna completely disappear from all social media and everything, and nobody's ever gonna hear from me again, and that'll be it.
Be like, well, there he went.
Like, he did it. He finally did it. All the kids must have graduated.
Well, let's see, how can I segue this? Well, so somebody almost did it apparently. I guess we can go on this. This was funny. So backstory, I guess. I don't know if you've ever heard, like, I know you play some games, but I don't know if you know that like how anything about how games are made. But there's Unity is a game engine, right? So like they all have different engines. A lot of them, they build their own engine when they make their game in house. But Unity's been one of the engines that is kind of just like a general engine that a lot of the companies will use to make their games. So apparently. There was they closed their offices. They made a change to their policy, saying that if you even download a game, that is a cost to the developers. So like if someone if I made a game in Unity using their tools, and then somebody downloads it, like literally every install. So they could uninstall, reinstall as many times as they want, and that's an extra cost to me every time they uninstall or reinstall, which is insane. Like the fact that they were doing that, but that's basically some of their policy. They're just trying to like cash grab. They went public last year. They're trying to get cash grab as much as they can. So they had a death threat apparently because they closed their offices. And I made the joke of like, oh yeah, gamers, gamers rise up. But apparently, this was actually done by their own employee. So this is, let's see, is there an update on this? Yeah, updated. Oh man, it won't let me see the article. Bloomberg, hate Bloomberg. But yeah, let's see. Can't confirm. Yeah, let me see if I can find the other tweet. But yeah, it's funny. They make all this change to their policy, and then all of a sudden, like there was a death threat, but it was from their own employee. So their own employee is issuing death threats because, and they were trying to play it off like sympathy for them because they've made such a stupid decision. So like everybody hates them right now because like a lot of people liked using their game engine just because like it's easy to kind of spin up a game, in that engine, and so a lot of people did that. And there's a ton of like tutorials and stuff on how to use it. And now all that's useless because they want to charge people per install. Like, I thought that was crazy.
Is that what you were going to use to make our video game that is still in development?
I can't use it. No, I can't use that engine. It's terrible.
I mean, not now, but is that?
Yeah. Yeah. I need to. I was going to use actually an open source engine to do that. I need to get time. I've just been so busy.
Ooh! We can add a new enemy class. So we got your final bosses, and then you've got we had the variations of Layton in different like monkey costumes. We've got different variations of Carlos in ethnically appropriate costumes, and then we can add Wayne in different like wrestler outfits.
Oh yeah, there we go.
See, then we've got our 3 different like standard fare enemy types, and then you got your final bosses.
There we go. That'll work. Now I just got to think about the arenas. Like, where are we going through? I guess mine it would have to be like a. Well,
obviously you got to have one in like a swamp in Florida for Dag, and then Clyde's is like out in the middle of the woods somewhere, like lost on the farm.
The forest.
Yeah.
You're walking through the forest, and all of a sudden you come upon. Hey.
Marx is like Nazi Germany.
Or Michigan. I mean, that's the same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, same difference at this point.
Just different kind of.
Yours can just, since you're in Alabama, yours can just be like wandering through the halls of Bear Bryant Stadium.
Yeah.
When you finally get to the final boss, you're actually on the field.
You see me trashing the place because I hate Alabama. Oh. Dude, it was so funny to see. Dude, it is the funniest. College football season is the funniest thing because all the Alabama fans, they get so worked up, like, yeah, another championship this season. This is gonna be our 88th championship. They're all so like hyped up, and then their first loss, dude, they lost to who did they lose to?
Texas.
Texas, yeah, that makes it even worse. But yeah, they lost to Texas, and then as soon as they lose, like it's like, oh well, we can still win the championship, and it's like, and then I guarantee you, if they lose the second time, it's going to be like they huff so much copium whenever they're coping so hard every time that they lose. It's insane. They start spazzing out. Like if Alabama isn't winning every single game, I know some people who literally, I'm wondering if they're going to have a heart attack. Like, oh, Alabama didn't win today. Oh, like they literally go into like hyperventilation mode. Like, oh, Alabama didn't win. Oh God. And then they start trying to play it off like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. You know, we'll come back next season. Blah blah blah. Like, it's just hilarious to watch them, dude. They get so worked up over it, dude. It's insane.
They're not that good this year.
I don't think they are, but you would think every year you hear about how like this is the best team ever, this is the best Alabama football team ever, and that's what I have to hear every single year. It's like, yeah, this is the best Alabama football team ever. We're gonna win another championship. This is gonna be our 88th. You know, it's like dude, like calm down, like just chill out, like let it happen. If you win, you win. Like, I mean, I get being a fan. That there's some people who just like they're not just a fan. They're literally their life is riding on whether or not the team wins or loses.
Right, and then you got Jim, who's like on the other side of that.
It's like
he always thinks that like the worst is going to happen.
They're going to suck, and then they ended up winning.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Oh wow, they won a championship." Like, jeez.
What else we got on the docket for today?
I guess we could talk about since that the primary focus of our show is spreading misinformation. Oh,
I was gonna say we talked about Rome and the Roman Empire and studying and learning about that. Well, not if you're in Oregon, you're not, or at least you don't have to. You don't have to study anything if you don't want to. Oregon governor signs a bill removing reading, writing, and math requirements for high school kids to help students of color.
I remember when this came out a couple years ago, and people were like, they were like, it's Oregon, doesn't matter. And then now it's kind of made its way back around, and people are like, oh God.
Well, have you seen the latest
scores? Yeah.
Have you seen the latest scores? I can't remember where it was.
I know Alabama sucks, unfortunately.
It was showing that inner city black kids, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 13% were passing their like math tests, like the
13%.
Yes, 13%.
The ADL might have a problem with that number.
Look, they can have all the problems they want with it. For some reason, that number seems to follow certain people. I'm not saying it's there are no coincidences. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, it's interesting. The outcome of all of these legislations and stuff to make it easier, to make it more equitable for all of these students of color, and what it ends up doing is just making them dumber, which another thing I've also talked about for a long time. It's by design.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, the dumber you are, the easier you are to control, the more likely you are to do whatever they say, and the less likely you are to try to figure shit out on your own. Like,
no. See, I did see that you had a video on that recently. I need to go back and watch that one. But I do know that you had like a part of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I know that there was part of it where you're like, well, is that a good thing? And
that's the way they're spinning it. Like, that's the actual spin, is that it's not necessarily a bad thing that IQs and standardized testing scores and all of that stuff are down. Like, and the reason that it's not a bad thing is because we're just learning in a different way. Like, no, we're getting fucking stupid. Like, you're not learning from TikTok videos. I'm sorry. You're like, the reason that a lot of these testing scores and stuff are down is because they're spending a whole lot more time on screens and stuff like that, and not actually like learning. And they're not learning. They're just basically like FaceTiming information. They're not processing, comprehending, like digesting it. It's just like there, and so it's not doing anything. Like the thing that should be concerning about these IQ tests and the declining scores is that it's like cognitive understanding. It's like rationale and like logical progressions and problem solving. Like we are getting worse at problem solving. We're getting worse at like statistics and
the logical
computation
reasoning.
and like
Yeah.
the things that actually make you successful. Like I know math,
because they keep pushing. They push STEM. They're pushing STEM harder and harder and harder. Like they keep saying, like, oh yeah, you know, technology, science, technology, math, blah blah blah. And the more that they push it, and then they lower these standards, and they don't want people to basically have the capability to do the logic that is required, because there are plenty of people that I know, you know, even from college, that despite them basically going through, you know, a computer science, which should be a logical, you know, sort of in environmental, like they should understand the process of logic and problem solving. That whenever you present them with like a basic, like, hey, you know, we need to figure out how to get reach this certain point, you know, logically, they just can't do it because like
they're not. That's because they're not in science, technology, and I don't. What's E stand for? Anyway, science, technology, engineering, and math. They're not actually focusing on science and engineering and math. They're focusing on technology, and the technology that they're focusing on is like this, doing shit like what we're doing right now, stuff that doesn't actually require a functional brain. Like literally any moron can create a StreamYard account, set up a YouTube channel, and do this. Like this is, for anybody watching, we are not doing something special and unique and amazing. We just hit the little go live button and
know how to
do
work
it. Right. We don't know how to operate this thing. We push a button and it operates. It's the same for like podcasters aren't doing anything unique or special. They're just using something to record and then upload it. There's no like a lot of
and occasionally
don't even edit anything.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. But there's some of them, maybe they have
and if they need editing done, they pay me to do it.
There may be some that they know that there's buttons that they can use to toggle, because like I have a thing that if I want to like toggle, you know, a scene or something like that, I could do that from a little button. They understand how to work they understand how to press the buttons, I guess. They don't understand what is going on under the hood. Like, what is this thing actually doing internally? They could never reasonably be able to work out that logic, which is something that I have to do whenever, you know, just my work job stuff. Like
that's like
for my actually.
Then
I have to understand, because like there was something the other day. Is like I'm having to figure out how do I make sure that certain you know, things are toggled when other things aren't toggled. Like you don't want to have certain values set, like the way that they want whenever they're clicking buttons. When they're just doing the clicky button thing, I have to keep track of that, you know, in the system, and keep it to where whatever that they do, it's updating the values the right way. So when you clicky button and you press save on something, it's actually saving the right thing instead of you know, having the wrong thing saving. And that
was something that Ben Armani or Cyprian talked about on a show with Mark Claire a couple years ago. Was like he talked about like the screw, and how like nobody knows how the screw is made, or like I'm like, but I do. Like I actually, like I took I took a tool and die class. Like I did machine shop. I know how to weld and how to run a mill and lathe and make all that stuff. Actually, I got some. See, like I used to be able to tell you the exact math on how you calculate the number of threads per inch and everything else, and like the depth of the thread and like everything. Like there's math to it. There's actual like calculations to go into it. Nobody knows how to do that shit anymore, and because we with the STEM, they only focus on the technology, and they don't even focus on how does the technology work. They just focus on using the technology that already exists. That the thing I loved the most about math. The thing I loved the most about math was if you can solve a math problem, it's yes, like high school math. Nobody's using algebra in their day-to-day lives, more or less. Like honestly, depending on what you do, you might use it to some extent. Like with inventory and stuff. Some of the stuff that I do, there's a little bit of use of it, but I took I took fucking calculus and trig and all that shit. Like I'm not using which. Granted, when I was taking that, I was planning on a career in engineering, and ended up deciding against that for varying reasons. But like nobody takes math seriously because they don't think it's something that they're going to use. And like math is invaluable. If you can learn how to solve a very complex math problem, you can figure out fucking anything. Like it's the problem solving. But nobody takes it serious, so nobody puts any effort into it. So then nobody knows how to solve problems. So
which is why I understand why this, which is why I understand to some degree why, professors do want you to kind of show your work whenever you do a math problem. But I mean, granted, if you can get to the answer, you probably were able to work it out, unless you just Googled it or used whatever tools that they there's all kinds of tools now that you can load it into a website and it tells you the answer. But I mean, generally speaking, if you could arrive at the answer in a reasonable way, you probably understand the process, or you just were guessing blindly and got it right.
But nobody understands any of those processes anymore. We are dumbing down society where nobody can do anything. They just know how to, or nobody can make anything. They just know how to do things. They don't know how to fix anything. If something breaks or stops working, they throw it away and go get another one. I remember taking apart used PlayStation 2s and testing all the components and stuff, figuring out what worked and what didn't, and taking 3 non-functional PlayStation 2s and stripping them down and combining them, putting it all back together to make one functional PlayStation 2. I don't think I ever bought a PlayStation 2 after I bought my very first one. And then after that, it was just somebody would have one that didn't work anymore. I'm like, I'll take it, and just break them down and figure out what works and what doesn't, and start Frankensteining those fuckers back together. Run a whole fucking PlayStation 2 repair shop. I used to do the same thing with controllers and stuff, different components on controllers will stop working. Just take them apart, strip it for parts, and put them back to and that's one of the things that an intuitive and an inquiring mind will look at and you think about, when you see something. We got this.
It's like there was an issue, a defect with the stick drift on one of the Nintendo Switch controllers, and they were there's ways you can send it to Nintendo and have them repair it or whatever, or you can just buy new ones. That's an option. But there was a tooling kit available where you could just fix it, and I was like, well, I can just. Now, granted, those are tiny freaking ribbon cables and junk that get in the way, and it was literally the most painful repair that I've ever done to try to fix something. But I mean, I went through the process because it's neat to crack it open, and okay, well, how does this thing internally work?
I was working at a facility, a grain elevator down in Mississippi, and we got this new $1,100 grain sorter. So when you get the sample off the trucks, you have to sort it for get the stuff that doesn't belong in there and everything out. And it was this
Basically,
it was
all
a
the
sorter.
chaff and stuff out.
Yeah. And it was this like sorting machine where you just take your sample and you dump it in there and you flip it on and it automatically sorts everything. So you don't have to do anything. We take it out of the box, set it on the counter, and then I immediately pull out my toolbox and just start taking it apart. And my boss was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" I was like, "I want to see
know how
it
it works.
I was like, "I want to see how it works." He was like, "What if you can't put it back together?" I said, "Then we put it back in the box and send it back to him and tell him it was defective and get another and have him replace it." He's like, "Okay." I was like, I mean, look, we need to understand how this thing works. It's not enough that we just sit it on the fucking counter and flip
because then as soon as it breaks, you just As soon as it breaks, then you have to say either you have to call in somebody who's a repair person to say, hey, and you have to pay them an exorbitant amount, oh well, I've got to come out there to your place, so that's going to be an extra fee of like $250 or something like whatever. No, you understand how it works. You can take it apart and put it back together if you need to, and okay, well, if there's a defect, we can see what's going on and why is it breaking? Why is it breaking? What's the reasoning? Is it an actual manufacturing issue that they have with these? Because that's interesting too. Because there are some people who have done that. It's like they took it apart, they understand it, they use the thing, and then at some point it reaches a threshold, and they realize, oh, there's a problem with this, and so I have to understand how it works.
I remember there was a recall on my old truck for the tailgate, the latch on the tailgate would stop working. And by the time they sent the recall out, I'd already fixed it. Mine had stopped working. Mine had stopped working a year before that, and I'd already taken it apart and fixed it. So I get a recall letter that I need to bring my truck into the dealership to have the tailgate latch problem fixed. I was like, y'all need to catch up. I've been way ahead of you on it. Just people don't have if something breaks, you just throw it away and go get a new. I hate this fucking throwaway society. I'm about to before I mow again, probably on Monday morning, I'm going to pull the deck out from underneath my mower and take the whole thing apart, clean it all up. I hit some shit out in the yard the other day that I don't know where it came from, but bent one of the blades. So I'm just gonna pull the whole deck off, and I'm gonna take the whole thing apart and clean it all up and straighten the blade out. And before the mowing season started, me and my son took the deck off, took the whole thing apart. We ordered new parts for it and everything, and just completely rebuilt the deck. The only thing original about it is the deck itself. Everything else is completely brand new. We replaced the blades and spindles and everything. And people just don't do shit like that anymore, and it's fucking pathetic. It's I don't know. It's anymore, rather than take the time to put forth even a minimal amount of effort to learn something and to try something new and to maybe expand your brain a little bit. Society is perfectly content to just sit around and be fucking retarded.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.